Ja, herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe SI Talk, erstes Interview in Vancouver und ich bin beim Chris Wagner, Emerald Health. Und wir haben schon einmal ein Interview gehabt vor ungefähr 12 Monaten und Cannabis bzw. alles, was mit Marihuana zu tun hat, geht momentan crazy an der Börse. Vielleicht habt ihr es schon gesehen, Tilray oder sowas sind auf und runter, ist 100% ist und jenes und alle möglichen Sachen, jeder einsteigt in den Markt. Und ja, deswegen freut es mich, dass mein erstes Interview auch in diesem Sektor reingeht. Chris, thank you to have time. And yeah, I told this in my German introduction that in general, cannabis stock, marijuana stocks are going crazy in the last few weeks.
Yes.
It's only a few weeks before in Canada, well, cannabis legalized, so that's it's now open for everybody, and in Europe is also a lot of discussion on this.
Yeah.
And before we come to your business, what are you thinking about the market and how crazy it is at the moment?
Yeah, it's certainly very impressive if you watch it, and there's a lot of excitement, and I think it will continue to be quite volatile for quite some time. And what you're starting to see are real companies emerging, where real companies with real products and real revenues, with sophisticated staff, with real global reach.
We saw this 4 weeks ago when consolidated brands take a portion of, they have a portion before, but they increase it to a really serious investment.
Yes.
And spend 4 billion, unbelievable.
Yes.
There's a lot of discussion that Coca-Cola maybe comes in. I was a little surprised that the tobacco companies so far not really reached this market.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of companies entering into this space. So far, up until now, it's really been mostly about Canada. And you referred to the adult use market being available in Canada in approximately 1 month. And so it's a very big deal for the country. But what investors are starting to realize is that it's not just about Canada. So Canada is a small country. It's
it's the second largest in the world. I learned last week.
Well,
but from the people, you're right.
Yeah, second largest in the world in terms of an adult use cannabis market. But that's probably maybe we're also the second largest geographically. But other than that, in not much else. And so you're seeing big companies like Constellation, and you mentioned Coca-Cola. I don't think they're here yet, but companies like that will come, and it will drive the value of these Canadian companies much higher, because there's very few. One of the things I've noticed is there's very, very few companies other than Canadian companies who are participating in this market. When I go to Germany, or when I go to the UK, or when I go anywhere else in the world, it's Canadian companies that are there. It's people like Emerald Health that are there. It's not some company from the United States, or even
Is this a little bit something compared maybe also to the resource market?
Yeah.
You know, in the resource market, Canada and Australia leads and explore the world.
Yeah.
And cannabis Canada has the natural advantage of it that it's free also for the adult market.
Yeah.
So and you have now more a safe regulation base here, where compared to all the other countries, especially US.
Yes.
US, you have a conflict of interest. You
Yes.
have on the state law, is legalized for example, California or Colombia, and on the federal law, it's illegal.
It's very hard to figure out the United States. It's very
strange
difficult.
for us. It's more strange for us than for you. That's for sure.
We're Canadians are comfortable not understanding the United States, and so the rest of the world has become comfortable trying to understand. But it really has created some very positive market advantages for Canadian companies. We don't have U.S. competitors.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And the one difference between the mining, it's a good analogy. Canadian mining and primary resource companies are all over the world, and the reason they're all over the world is Canada has a lot of natural resources. But this is different, because what Canada has in this case is Canada is not the best place in the world to grow cannabis.
That's for sure, yes.
What Canada is the best place in the world is that it has this regulatory system that has allowed companies to grow and flourish and get a real head start, and to start to develop intellectual property, which I think is going to be ultimately where these Canadian companies go. Is it doesn't make sense for companies to ship raw cannabis to the UK or Germany or Austria. These countries, they can figure out how to grow cannabis themselves. But what makes sense is for Canadian companies to develop brand new products that other people have never seen, and these products will be patented, and then you can sell these products in all these markets all over the world. That, I think, makes sense. And it, going back to your original comment on valuations and being very volatile, that, I think, is where most of the value will lie, is in these Canadian companies. The adult use market in Canada is great. We're all going to make a lot of money. But where this goes is, I believe, exporting intellectual property for its medical uses in other countries, many of which now have a federally legal medical marijuana system. Not adult use, but medical.
Changing. We saw this in Europe, that it's changing. So a lot of countries starting the last few years to with this medical portion of cannabis. But still, some countries is not allowed to also to use it for medical purposes.
Yes.
So maybe Canada is for us a big example in a big way. So that you have a big country or with a serious number of people that live there, so you can see a proof of concept. Is this working or not, or is this positive for the people or not? And so it's a perfect example, I think, what everybody in the world will watch how Canada will do, or in the next 2-3 years.
It's a very, very interesting social experiment.
Yeah, that's right.
On a very grand scale.
Yeah. And this I think is a good point. Coming back to your company.
Yeah.
So my last interview with your company was 9 months ago, 12 months ago, I think. And so what's is happened since the last 12 months?
The big thing that's happened in the last 12 months or 9 months is we've tremendously ramped up our ability to grow cannabis. And so to be a Canadian licensed producer, licensed by Health Canada, which Emerald Health Therapeutics is, we're one of those companies. So we have a license by the government to do this. You need to grow a tremendous amount of cannabis. And
what this mean, tremendous amount of cannabis?
So in our example, we have partnered with a company here in Vancouver called Village Farms, and so they've been growing tomatoes in greenhouses for about 30 years.
That's funny. I watched BNN, BNN Bloomberg, and there was one of the stocks that coming up. It was today a little bit lower. Then they raise a little bit money for the switch from tomatoes and to the cannabis space.
I think we were one of the first companies that did that, but it makes tremendous sense. So a lot of other companies are going to do this, because growing this, it's just a crop, but you have to grow it at a very large scale agriculture. So this facility that we're working on together is 1 million square feet, and so it produces. At peak, it will produce approximately 75,000 kilograms of cannabis per year. So that's a lot.
That's a lot.
And this is in a greenhouse, so it's called a hybrid greenhouse. So it's partially lit and partially not
Is
lit.
already this greenhouse exist? Or
yeah, it already exists. So this was what we did. We retrofitted it.
Okay.
The whole facility now, the whole 1 million square feet, is licensed for sale. And we're cultivating or growing cannabis in half of the building now. So it's really quite incredible to go and see.
So you grow so far. So now.
So we grow a lot, and we've established another grow facility in Quebec, which is Canada's largest, geographically largest province, second largest population-wise. It's our French, mostly French-speaking province, and so we have another facility there. And so we've spent a lot of time growing things, and we've spent a lot of time preparing for this adult use market. This is a consumer packaged good in many ways. And so the sales and marketing and branding, all the things you would expect from a traditional packaged goods company, we've done as well. And
this is a good point. The most cannabis companies, what I watch and follow and so on, they say, yeah, we built this greenhouse and huge and everything great, but when it comes to a sales point, that's it for me very important. It's great when you have a product, but you must sell it on the other end too.
Absolutely.
So and this is what your work or biggest or also a big focus on it, to set up a brand,
brand distribution and communicating to people who choose to consume cannabis what our brand is all about and what the company is all about. And what it's all about is allowing people to consume cannabis with confidence. So you can imagine, and this was driven from a lot of market research we did, you can imagine that people don't want to have a random experience with cannabis. It's similar to wine, where if you have one glass of wine, you know what happens. If you have 2 glasses of wine, you know what happens, 3, and so on. With cannabis today, you don't know that. It's very unpredictable. And so our brand as a company and how we're growing the cannabis and how we're recombining it and the products we're selling are designed to, so we use a lot of science to provide consistent, predictable outcomes for people. Because the kind of people we believe are going to consume the most cannabis are actually people like you and me. It's not the stereotype that many people think of. It's not the 22-year-old going to some music concert. That some of that goes on, but the most cannabis is consumed by people from 40 years and older, and they're actually using it for to relax or to treat pain or to reduce anxiety or to improve their sleep. That's what people are using cannabis for. And so our brand is focused on communicating that and also creating products that truly deliver on that promise. We're actually all of us are from a life sciences background, so we're very much the previous person you interviewed was the chairman of Emerald. He's a physician. I come from 25 years in the pharmaceutical industry. I've launched well over 10 products globally, and so the strategies that the pharmaceutical and the biotech industry uses are the strategies that we're using. So it's all about, how do you give somebody the same experience every single time? And you know what they're, and it's the same thing with consumer packaged goods. When you have a coffee or you have a whatever it is your toothpaste, whatever it is you consume, you want it to be the same every single time. And so that's our brand, and and we communicate to the type of person that I was describing to you.
Does mean that you're coming up with different products? You say, okay, people for having problems with sleep, or they want to relax, or they want whatever. So that is this means. So for example, coming back to a coffee, when I want an espresso, I know exactly what I get.
Exactly.
And hope it's always the same. And when I want a cappuccino, I get this one.
Exactly. I love espresso. You like espresso.
Absolutely.
And there's a reason why. We like the flavor and the taste. And how it's a little volume, it's not very much. We like that. And people are the same way with cannabis. So the three, you asked what we're working on and what's changed. So we're growing a lot more cannabis. Our brand and our marketing and our sales is ramping up. And the third thing is exactly what you were articulating there, is we're working on new product development. So we're filing patents. These are global patents through, as you may know, when you file a patent, you can make them applicable in all the countries in the world that work with the Patent Cooperation Treaty. So that's most countries, certainly all in Europe and all in North America. And so we're filing patents, and we are beginning to study these products and actually compare them to it's called standard of care. So what you would normally use. So let's use coffee as an example. So if we were studying cannabis in improving energy, we would compare our cannabis to espresso in a proper clinical trial. that a physician or an insurance company or a consumer could look at and say, yeah, I see they've done the science. It's sophisticated and well done. It actually demonstrates the outcome, which is improvement in energy. And this Emerald Health Therapeutics product seems to work better than espresso. And so I'm going to buy it. And I'm just using that as a metaphor, as an example. But really what we're focused on is developing products that improve sleep, reduce anxiety, improve energy, and decrease pain. We think those are the core and some of the best uses for cannabis, both in the medical setting, but also in the adult use setting.
Coming to the distribution ways. So what is your focus on the distribution? I think then we will see a lot of competition for sure in the beginning.
Yeah, so our main focus on distribution, there's two main channels. So with our medical patients, we distribute directly. So they put in an order to us, we ship it through the mail or through courier directly to their house. So that's nice. It's a little bit of the Amazon or some sort of it's like an online.
It's online too.
Yeah. So that will continue to be a big focus.
Also for the recreational market? Or?
Not for the recreational market. Okay. So this is just for the medical. For the recreational market, Canada is has modeled the distribution of cannabis after the distribution of liquor model.
Okay.
And so the distribution of liquor in Canada is done where a company sells to the government, agencies. So there's one in every province. So the liquor companies sell to the government agency, and then the government agency sells from there. So it's a centralized model. It's the same thing in cannabis. So Emerald Health Therapeutics, as an example, announced a supply deal with the province of British Columbia, where we are here today. So we will supply them directly. We've announced a supply deal with the province of Ontario, so we supply them directly.
So how a customer can buy then the stuff? You must go to a kind of liquor store or in the liquor store? Or what?
Yeah, so in each province they've set it up a little bit differently. In some provinces it's all government controlled. So in Quebec, I mentioned earlier, the French-speaking province, it's all government controlled. So the stores will be government-controlled stores.
Okay.
In British Columbia, it will be a mix of both government stores and private retail stores.
And how you can get then to the client, that the client come to these stores and say, I want the product of Emerald Health?
Yeah, so our ability to communicate directly to customers is somewhat limited compared to a coffee company. So there are rules on how we can and can't communicate with Canadians, and so we follow those rules exactly. We want to stay on the right-hand side on the proper side of things, but we still need to let people know and educate them about our products. And so we do this through a variety of different mechanisms, mostly educational in nature. So we have a education campaign running right now all across Canada, and it's about discussing cannabis. And so we pose provocative questions. For example, will the legalization of cannabis decrease crime in Vancouver? ? And so we're engaging people in a discussion around cannabis, which helps. Cannabis has not been a polite dinner conversation for Canadians or Europeans or anywhere else in the world, really. And so we believe that our target audience will be appreciative of Emerald taking a position on, we want to talk about cannabis. We want to discuss both the negatives and the positives, and engage in a dialogue. So that's just one example of how we can communicate with our customers. There's other ways through our packaging, through the actual retail stores themselves. They can engage Canadians in dialogue about products, and so helping to educate those people who work in those retail environments is important.
Absolutely. then they sell the product to them.
Yeah, they become our ambassadors and really a source for education. Many people don't know. So I'll give you an example. So there's not all cannabis gets people high, or it actually has. So there's some cannabis that appears to have no impact on your brain, or at least it doesn't produce any euphoria at all. And so over half of what we sell today is that kind of cannabis.
So it's strictly CBD?
CBD and it's sort of non-THC. So
THC,
CBD is highly prevalent in there. There's other things in there as well. But it's very important that people understand that this product will do this sort of thing.
A lot of misunderstanding in Europe too, so that they all think, okay, that from every cannabis you get high, and this is not true.
It's just not true. In fact, it's really, I'm a chemist by training, and so what's very, very interesting to me is there's over 100 chemicals in this plant, and only one of them appears to be psychoactive. What do all the other 99 chemicals do? And so taking those apart and putting them back together and studying them in people is fantastic from a scientific point of view. And that's one of the things about Canada that I think is very interesting, is here now we can do those kind of studies unlike anywhere else in the world.
That's a big advantage.
It's a big advantage, and we will create new, safe, effective products that way, and it's uniquely able to do here because of the federally legal framework, which is if you're a life sciences focused company like we are, that's great because we know the tools to use to study and develop products like that. So you have to have that skill set to be able to take advantage of this situation. But it's a wonderful thing for Canada and Canadians and for the businesses here.
Great, thank you for the update. Next time when I come over, it would for me a pleasure when you have also time that we can talk in the first few months when you are in this legalized market, how this is working. Very interesting. Ja, das war jetzt ein sehr spannendes Interview. Sie wissen, Cannabis sind momentan oder ist der Markt, der am heißesten ist. Und er hat ein paar Punkte aufgeworfen, die extrem spannend sind. Erstens einmal, er hat gesagt, habe ich natürlich gefragt, was er so getan hat in den letzten Monaten, seitdem das Interview war. Das erste Interview ist, sie haben erstens mal ihre Produktion erhöht. Und sie arbeiten da auch mit einem Gewächshausbetreiber zusammen, der Tomaten, Paprika und Co. alles macht. Da war heute auch auf BNN ein schönes Interview. Village Farms oder so heißt der. Der hat sozusagen schon das Gewächshaus und das wird dann dementsprechend auch benutzt, um Cannabis anzubauen. Die Hälfte nutzen es dort derzeit einmal und dort wird auch stark produziert. Alleine diese Facility kann 75.000 Kilo pro Jahr produzieren. Zweiter Punkt, was allerdings sehr spannend ist, ist auch für mich natürlich, dass sie an Produkte arbeiten, die spezielle, jetzt hätte ich gesagt, welchen eines Person betrifft. Also vor allem auch, wenn es um einen Erwachsenenmarkt geht. Also wenn man müde ist oder wenn man Energie braucht, wenn man relaxen will, dass man genau auch immer standardisiert diese Produkte hat, die man dann denselben Effekt sozusagen jedes Mal hat. Wenn man einen Kaffee trinkt, weiß man, wenn man immer denselben trinkt, wie er schmeckt. Und genauso soll die Experience oder sozusagen mit anderen Produkten sein. Wenn er jetzt ein Produkt haben will, weil er schlecht schlafen kann, dann will er halt, dass er jedes Mal denselben Effekt hat, wie halt auch eine Pharmazieprodukt. Und sie kommen alle aus dem Pharmaziebereich. Da ist es halt einfach so, dass man das dementsprechend so umsetzt. Und das dritte große Thema war für mich auch der Vertrieb. Wie kommt man da drauf? Da habe ich ein bisschen was Neues wieder gelernt. Ich habe mir gedacht, die können das an den Einzelhändler einfach so liefern. Nein, sie müssen das ans Government liefern und das Government distribuiert das dann an die einzelnen Filialen weiter. Auch sehr spannend, habe ich nicht gewusst. Und ich bin echt gespannt, wie das abläuft. Aber was er auch sagt, und das ist, glaube ich, das Riesenvorteil, und das vergessen wir alle, wenn wir uns die Cannabis-Werte anschauen und die Bewertung dieser Cannabis-Werte sagen, das ist ja alles crazy. Na, man darf eines nicht vergessen, sie sind quasi jetzt momentan das einzige Land, die diese Studien, diese Entwicklungen eigentlich machen können. Also genau, dass man Produkte aufsetzt, die für Schlafen behilflich sind oder für Schmerzen behilflich sind oder für Relaxing oder für Energie und so weiter, dass man halt mehr Energie hat. Das können sie jetzt machen. Und auch ein wichtiger Punkt war, von diesen 100 Chemikalien quasi oder Einzelbestandteile vom Cannabis ist das THC das einzige eigentlich, das psychoaktiv ist, das High macht und alle 99 andere nicht. Und man kann sehr wohl Produkte generieren, die die anderen 99 Produkte hat und nicht das THC drinnen, das wissen wir auch selber schon. Und das ist eigentlich extrem wichtig und spannend. Und Sie können da Studien machen, wo alle anderen Länder quasi Nachteile haben, weil die können es das nicht machen. Und das ist der Riesenvorteil von den kanadischen Unternehmen, dass sie dann quasi die Welt explorieren, wie die Rohstoffunternehmen eigentlich auch. Spannendes Interview, finde ich ganz spannend. Ich bin schon gespannt, was er mir in 3 Monaten erzählt, wenn ich wieder zurückkomme, weil dann haben wir 3 Monate unseres legalisierten Marktes hier und da bin ich ganz gespannt, wie es da rauskommt. Chris, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And it was really a pleasure for me to interview. It was very informative. It was really a great one.
I'm glad. Thank you. Thanks for the interview.